What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Odin coming to you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the box office for this past weekend, and it is an interesting one. This is obviously the Super Bowl weekend, which means that this video alone is probably going to be competing with that by the time it eventually goes live, but it also means that the box office is not nearly doing as well as it could be if there wasn't a Super Bowl this weekend, if people weren't buying up all of the tickets and all of the snacks and everything like that to get ready for their Super Bowl parties, and if the people from where I am in New Orleans were, not, crying and whining about not making it. Then obviously there would have been more people going to the movies. But that being said, Saints didn't go to the Super Bowl. Yay. Look at that. Anyway, there are some box office numbers here, and because of the slow weekend, though, it meant that Glass was able to once again come in at #1. This is now 3 weeks in a row that it is coming at #1. From last week to this week, there was about a 50% drop, which altogether isn't that bad, especially since it was able to bring in $9.5 million. Keep in mind that what it made in this weekend alone, without, of course, taking into account production budgets and the 60% take that the actual studio makes, is almost close to what the actual budget of the film ended up being. So it just tells you that this film is making money. I mean, this film was profitable after its first weekend, and so now in 3 weeks and in 4 or 5 weeks, it's just going to keep on making money. And yeah, it might not have been as successful as Split, and yes, I know that the audiences themselves are also split, no pun intended, on this movie as well, but overall it's still having some very good showings week to week. Also, surprisingly enough, and as I've said this before on this channel constantly, The Upside is still doing well, and I think that it has to do with two different things. One, I think that the older audiences are probably being drawn to it, being a story about a person who is paralyzed, being helped, again, a feel-good story. Usually older audiences are drawn to it. But also, I think it really does help to show the staying power that a Kevin Hart type character has. Even in a movie that got panned by critics, doesn't really necessarily have the greatest audience scores in the world, isn't like a beloved film that people are like, oh my god, you have to see, but it's definitely one of those, hey, it's a good time, if you want to have a good time at the theater, if you want to just turn your mind off and see a story and see these actors interact on screen, even though there's a better version, there's a better original version, foreign language version that you could see. I think that is showing us once again that Kevin Hart indeed can bring in the money, which just reminds me every single week just how stupid the Academy and how everyone in Hollywood was by just throwing him out on the rail for the faux outrage and the fake controversy about his so-called his so-called homophobic comments from the past in his comedy. Like, I'm sorry, like, the whole thing was ridiculous, and they are going to bite it. Like, they think that, oh, Black Panther is nominated for an Oscar now, that's going to bring in the people. People watching the Oscars are not the people, not the same people that went to go see and love Black Panther. Like, I'm sorry. If you think that the people who went out in droves, especially in the United States, the $700 million worth of people who went out in droves to go see that movie are going to sit down for about 3 hours to see a bunch of rich Hollywood elitists give awards to each other and preach to people and preach about inequality and preach about, I'm making millions of dollars, but there are other people who aren't, and I'm not going to do a damn thing though because I got this Oscar, I got this nice little golden thing, this golden plated statue that makes me better than you, but I'm gonna speak up for you. And every single one of them is going to say, screw you, you have no idea what my life is. And so, yeah, those are the audiences that they're going to try and get. And Kevin Hart was going to be a way that they could get in some people who maybe didn't watch before, because then you would have a reason to watch. You would say, oh, I'm watching it because Kevin Hart is hosting, which means he's going to do a stand-up routine, which means that's going to be probably pretty funny. Because Kevin Hart, despite that there are people that don't like him, overall has a universal appeal to him. Most people, I would argue, tend to like him. And to me, The Upside is doing well for a large reason, a large part to do with that very fact. The fact that The Upside, now in its 4th week, it's now been out for 4 weeks and it's going up. They added 191 theaters. Tells you all that you really need to know about how well this film is doing in comparison to what people suspected it to. And also just, I think, once again, the power that Kevin Hart has. The only real new movie, the big release that came out this weekend, that came in at #3, is Miss Bala. Now, this one is going to one I have a lot of comments on, and I have a lot of speculation as to why it's not doing as well, and also the commentaries surrounding it. But Miss Bala is a forgettable, apparently, action flick that is all about Gina Rodriguez. If you know who that actress is, you'll know, okay, yeah, she's not really known for being an action hero, and looks like she's not going to be known as an action hero because this film is already on pace to be a bust. Could it potentially break even? Sure. I mean, it's only the first week that it's been out, but at the same time, it's still got a ways to go. As you can see from the sides here, the budget for Glass was $20 million. Again, it's made 9.5, so almost half of its total in that weekend. The budget for The Upside was 37.5. already in its 4th weekend adding theaters. It's made 8.8, so that film is now making a profit for sure. And Miss Bala, 15 million, so a very low budget film, but 6.7 opening weekend, guaranteed to drop by at least 50% by next weekend, especially since we've got much bigger films coming out starting next weekend, namely one being the Lego Movie 2. Miss Bala is pretty much going to fade away from existence, and it's going to be very hard for it to make up that 15 million, because remember, even if, let's say for instance, it somehow makes 15 million worldwide, it only gets 60% of that. And because it only gets 60% of that, it needs to make even more than that to actually break even or make a profit. So let's actually go into the actual numbers themselves. So Glass still doing very well, 88.6 million domestically, which is very, very good. Production budget was 20 million, which means it cost around 30 million to make this movie, and it's almost at $200 million worldwide. That is a huge success. Keep in mind that if it costs $30 million to make and they only get 60% of their entire gross, it means that they essentially only needed to make around $70 million or so just to break even, and is at almost $200 million. And so this film has made over $100 million in profit alone and doesn't seem to be stopping. I think that once next week comes around and bigger movies start to come out, it'll start to fade away. It's going to lose its #1 spot definitely next weekend, but it is still doing well enough to be able to make its money back in droves. And even though many people are still saying it's not that good, it's not the, you know, the ending's bad, etc., the box office seems to be speaking for itself by saying, actually, it's a pretty entertaining movie, because people are going out still to go see it and to support it enough to it to be, you know, for the 3rd week in a row, the #1 movie at the box office. As I said, the upside is doing better than anyone would have suspected. Yeah, we knew that this movie, again, this was meant for an American audience. This was not going to do anything overseas, so it's only made $6 million overseas, which is really not that big of a surprise. But domestically, it's done very well. Again, $75 million might not seem like a lot of money, but keep in mind, this was a lower budget film for $37.5 million. It's made $81.6 million worldwide, meaning that the film overall is now making profit. So this is a very good job. So Kevin Hart, Bryan Cranston, Nicole Kidman, they were able to bring in enough people. They're still bringing in people. Once again, this film has been in the top 3 since it came out, and to the point that now they're still adding theaters to it, which is very rare to see 4 weeks out, especially for a smaller movie like this. You know, for a bigger budget film, maybe, or for a surprise hit, for a surprise smash, maybe, but not for a movie called The Upside, which, again, has not really gotten much as far as, you know, critical or even audience traction, and yet has been enough to bring enough people to say, hey, this actually looks like a good time. Like, look at that poster. If I saw that poster, I'd say, hey, that actually looks like a good time. There's, surprisingly, someone who used to work at the movie theater, there are a lot of people that don't know what they're going to see before they go to the theater. They go up to the theater and then they look and they say, what's out? Oh, wait, this movie isn't out yet. Oh, I thought it would be out at this point. And so there are people that they get up to your window, even though they've been waiting in line for a long time. They say, I don't know what to see. What's good? It's surprisingly a lot of people. And so it makes perfect sense rather to me that this film would do well, because I can, again, see a lot of older people who love to go to see the movies, especially those matinee shows that they only have to pay $5, and then the senior discounts at certain theaters, etc. And they'll see this and say, oh, this looks like a good old time, and they'll go to see it. And as I said, Kevin Hart probably has something to do with it as well. I don't think, if Kevin Hart wasn't in this movie, I don't think the movie would be doing nearly as well. I think this film would probably be on its way out at this point, and yet here it is, still making money. Looking at you, Academy. And then the one new big release this weekend, Miss Bala. So as you can see, that's Gina Rodriguez, and it's all about how she is caught in the crossfires of a border dispute thing, and then she's got to fight her way out. And so she's like an innocent person, doesn't know what to do, and then finally she like gets the courage and fight out, and strong female woman. Is pretty much what this movie is from what I've read of the synopsis and everything like that. And guess what? It's actually not getting praised by critics, which is kind of a surprise to me. But when you dig into the critic ratings, you start to understand a little bit more. However, domestically, 6.7 million, that is awful. Even though the budget was only 15 million, 6.7 million for your opening is really bad, because we have bigger movies coming out next weekend. That tells me everything I need to know about this film. And as I said, next weekend alone, you are going to be getting, February 8th, you're getting Cold Pursuit at 2,500 screens, Lego Movie 2 at 4,100, so that's going to be the big money maker. That's going to be the huge money maker next weekend. And then movies called The Prodigy, What Men Want. There's a lot I can say about What Men Want, but I cannot deny that it's probably going to make a little bit of cash at the box office. But we shall see just how much money it ends up making. But in the end, Miss Bala is just kind of at the point now where it's guaranteed to barely break even, and that's really sad, seeing that it only needed to make $15 million, and it came out on a very slow weekend where the biggest movie was been out for 3 weeks at this point. interestingly enough. But as I said, with Miss Bala, again, 27% of critics liked it, 58% of audiences liked it, so definitely not good scores overall. But here's, if you want to know how there is bias in the media, how there is bias, especially when it comes to film criticism these days, just look at this critics consensus. So basically, the critics consensus is written by Rotten Tomatoes. They look at all the different, critic ratings, etc., and then they write their own blurb to explain the 27%. And note how it starts off. Miss Bala suggests Gina Rodriguez has a future as an action hero. Unfortunately, it also demonstrates how hard it is to balance set pieces against a compelling story. So what we're seeing here is that, oh, no, it's not Gina Rodriguez's fault. She's great. She has a future. Guys, she has a future as an action heroine. Even though the movie is obviously here terrible. It's amazing to me. See, you'll see similar movies in this 27% that will have no positive spin whatsoever. But if it fits the right demographic, if it fits just the right storyline that they want to say, Rotten Tomatoes, they will easily try and spin those critics' consensus as often as they possibly can. Not to mention, you look to some of these critics, and one of the positive reviews from Vulture, of course from Vulture, it says, "A woman's sense of disempowerment by men on all sides of the law, and it's something genuinely frightening comes through. Yes, oh my gosh, because it's just so real and gritty. You definitely deserve better than this. Oh, yes, you deserve better. Wow, you deserve better because you're a woman. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what's going on here. The film overdoses on its own message of pop feminist empowerment. Really, it overdoses on it." That's interesting coming from a critic, but at the end of the day, you still have like saying, "Oh no, the pop feminist empowerment thing is good, but you go a little bit too far with it." Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. And then, of course, you can read through the rest for yourself. But basically, it's interesting how every single review mentions something about race, something about gender, and it's like, I'm sorry, but what does that have to do with this movie? Isn't it an action film? Should you be telling me about how the action sequences are, how everything else works together? Is the story good? No, let's go ahead and play the identity politics game instead. And then, of course, because I have to keep talking about it, because as I've made this prediction, I was the one who predicted $1 billion after the first weekend in China. I'm sure I'm not the only one that predicted it, but many people mocked me when I said that it was going to make $1 billion, and now it's made well over $1 billion. It's now at 1.1, officially $1.1 billion, and we still don't have all of the numbers yet from the foreign market, so that number is just going to go up. Also, keep this in mind that this Friday, it finally opens up in Japan. Now, Japan is going to be an interesting animal because I would suspect that it could make at least around 25-30 million in its entire run in Japan. It could also make upwards of 100 million. Now, I know some people say the Japanese audiences don't really show up to Superman films, and I would agree with you to a point, but this film has also just shattered expectations in every single area it's been in. No one thought it would be this huge juggernaut in China. No one thought that it would be making decent money in the United States. No one thought that it would be this successful. And so I'm going to err on the side of the caution and say that I think that Japan could end up being a pretty good market for it. Is it going to be over $100 million? Again, it's not... It's something that I'm not 100% sure of, but it is possible. There's at least $100 million worth of money there. I mean, if you look to, for example, The Force Awakens, in Japan alone, they made well over $100 million in Japan alone. So there's definitely the capacity for it to make that kind of money. However, this film has also been out for a long time, meaning that many people may have already started to stream it, maybe started to torrent it illegally, etc. So who knows if there's people that are actually going to want to go see it in the box office themselves, but you never know. So as I said, probably between $30 to $100 million is the range that it'll make there. And if that is the case, and if it continues moving forward, it means that the film will likely end just around $1.2 billion, which makes me really sad because I thought that it was going to have enough. Again, it's dropped off just enough for me to lose confidence that it's going to reach the $1.3 billion mark, which would have been amazing because then it would have matched and possibly surpassed The Last Jedi and also Black Panther. But it looks like that is probably not going to be in the cards, but it'll really depend on how much money it makes in Japan and also how much money it makes overall. Anyway, guys, that's it. Man, I am just off my game today. Guys, that's it for the box office. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up. Give us a subscribe. Help us out. You're all amazing, beautiful people. Geeks and Gamers channel. Oh, man. The Geeks and Gamers channel. Geeks and Gamers channel. Man, I need a sip of water here. Delicious. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you like this video, seriously, smash that like button. Give us a subscribe. You are all amazing, beautiful people. Also, let me know your own thoughts. Do you think that Miss Bala is going to be a surprise hit? I doubt it. Upside, do you think the Upside is doing well because of Kevin Hart? And also Glass, are you surprised that it's making as much money as it is for as little of a budget that it had? I think that's really cool. I still really want to see it. Yes, I have not seen it yet because I am just a terrible movie watcher lately, but I'm doing what I can. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful day and ready to watch the Super Bowl. had to get it out there for my people. Anyway, have a great day, and as always, God bless.